Hello everybody and welcome! I'm Justin from Playing Board Games, and today I have 5 spoiler-free tips for you from Edge of the Earth. So notably, it gets a little bit trickier here when we get to these later campaigns, because I've played Dunwich, Carcosa, Circle Undone, Forgotten Age, Dream Eaters, Innsmouth quite a few times. I think I've only played Edge of the Earth. I mean, like, this is going to sound like a lot, like probably 6 to 8 times. It's harder for me to like come up with tips that I think are as well-rounded as some of the previous ones. However, I still have some tips for you today that hopefully give you kind of a bit more context in terms of how you have a better handle on approaching Edge of the Earth and all of that jazz. Let's dive in with tip number 1 here, which is movement is clutch. Maps can get big in this campaign. So, this was something that became pretty obvious pretty quick when it came to Edge of the Earth, especially when you start exploring in the first map. Maps get big in this one. They also can get pretty small, but maps do actually get quite big in Edge of the Earth. So anytime that you can save on movement or cheat movement or, you know, like just get movement for free, is very good for this one. This is especially true on the Guardian side of things, just due to some designs that come in later. So like if you're like the Clue Getter, it's pretty easy for you to find movement. I mean, Seekers just have movement built into it. But anytime that you can like save on 1 to 5 movement actions in a scenario, odds are you're going to have a better chance at succeeding in Edge of the Earth, and that is kind of why we do all of this. The maps are also kind of designed that you need to kind of like sometimes backtrack. So being able to, like basically just the less time you spend moving, the better. And this is ultimately true for the entirety of Arkham Horror. The move action is the action you have to take. It's very rarely the action you want to take. So you just have to keep in mind, how do I get these move actions, and you know, like how do I not spend all my time moving, and so I can spend my time winning the game instead. And Edge of the Earth just generally requests that more than other campaigns across the entire board. So it's one of those things that if you want to look at getting a head start, a good way to do that is by, you know, finding some movement tech when you can, whether that be Pathfinder. Safeguard is a great one. Like, these are all things that can help you, like Nimble in the Rogue class. These are all things that are good options for you to potentially get ahead of Edge of the Earth. Next tip here, we got card selection is rewarded more than card draw. So card draw is pretty simple. Like an example of this is Deep Knowledge in the Seeker class, a 0-cost event where you put in 2 curse tokens and then investigators at your location draw 3 cards. Card selection is something like No Stone Unturned in the Seeker class, 2 cost. An investigator location looks at the top 6 cards and draws one of those cards. Or the strongest card selection in the game, Lucky Cigarette Case 3 in the Rogue class, which is the amount you succeed by. You get to look at that many cards and then draw one of them. Card selection is, there's less card selection than there is card draw in Arkham Horror, just due to the nature that card selection is just inherently kind of just stronger, right? You're looking for something, you get what you want. Other examples are kind of like Tyrion effects, like Research Librarian, Prepared for the Worst, Backpack 2. These are all very strong ways for you to get card selection as opposed to card draw. The reason why it is rewarded more in this campaign, due to a mechanic that I don't want to spoil what it does, but it's called Tekalilis. And it is something that actually is going to impact your card draw more than you actually want it to. And it's, I think it's a very fun mechanic in terms of, well, it's not fun, it's actually like, it's a burden, but like game mechanics, when it's trying to beat you, kind of do have to feel like burdens in order to be good. But it's an enjoyable mechanic to explore, especially on the blind play, I find. So it's one of those things that, because of this mechanic, you're going to be feeling it throughout the whole campaign. It's like, it's not a scenario mechanic, it's going to be there from scenario 1 all the way to scenario 7 or 8, whatever the last scenario is in this one. And it's one of those things that you're going to feel it, and you're actually going to feel it just more on just like random incidental card draw. So while things like Lucky Cigarette Case 0, where you succeed a test by 2, you get a draw card, are still good in Edge of the Earth because card draw is still inherently good. Cards win card games. It's going to feel less good than in other campaigns due to some of the mechanics that exist in Edge of the Earth. A little bonus tip, because we always like to put some bonus tips. This is especially true if you're the Guardian or like the fighter of the group. Fighters are punished by Tekalilis more than Clue Getters are. as is just the way, as just how things go. So it's another thing as well. This is especially true if you're a Guardian. So things like Prepared for the Worst and Backpack go really well in this one, like better than something like Glory. While Glory is still a playable card, you might want to be looking for other ways to more efficiently maximize your value in terms of card draw versus card selection. Tip number 3, we are rocketing through this. You have a bit of leeway for damage and horror, but it may impact the story. Especially if you're a new player. I know that new players like to not die, and damage and horror are scary. When you become a little bit more fricked up like I am, you welcome damage and horror and you're not scared of it. It's just like the only damage and horror that matters is the last damage and horror. However, with all that said, Edge of the Earth actually has a pretty cool mechanic. It's called the partner mechanic that exists in this campaign, where you have some allies that are going to kind of help you throughout your whole journey. And that's like trying to sum up what it is, but also be as spoiler-free as possible. And these allies come in with their own damage and horror soak. And it gives you a bit of leeway, so you have like a little bit less pressure off right at the get-go. However, with that said, this is not like free damage and horror soak, like to like make it so that you can like basically increase your values. It does matter and has long-term ramifications over the entire campaign. But what it does allow you to do is it allows you to have just a little bit less stress in terms of finding deck slots for your survivability, right? Because of this as well, cards that heal ally assets are very good in this campaign due to those reasons, because it kind of gives you like a repeatable form of soak that you're able to take advantage of. And I think that this is like something that you could really capitalize on, especially if you're someone like Carolyn Fern or Vincent Lee. They are inherently very good in this campaign due to the partner mechanic. But what it also does is it just gives you deck slots that would normally be spent on having you survive. You can like maybe cut down 1 or 2 of those cards and put in cards that help you win the game if your preference is to make sure you survive. So Edge of the Earth is a little bit nice to give you a little boost there. Going on to tip number 4, we have this one. The first few scenarios really reward exploration. Again, some of these tips kind of sound obvious, right? But Edge of the Earth, it has a very interesting campaign structure where, if you know what Scarlet Keys is completely open world. So Edge of the Earth, Scarlet Keys, and Feast of Hemlock Vale all came out in the new box format where they've been experimenting with campaign structure. With some positives and some negatives that go with it. Scarlet Keys was entirely open, right? You can go in any direction. Hemlock Vale was open but fixed, so like you had to like certain scenarios could only happen at certain times, right? And there was a limited number of scenarios. It wasn't completely open, but still partially open. Edge of the Earth, however, was a strict, rigid structure in terms of this was a scenario 1, this was scenario 2. However, there was some kind of things that could pop up in between, right? So like scenario 1 could potentially be 1 to 3 scenarios. Halfway through, you might be able to interact with a side scenario at various points. At the final scenario, you can also handle it in 1 or 2 scenarios kind of thing, right? So like while it is a linear campaign structure, there is kind of like some space to explore within that, which I thought was pretty cool. Because of this, Ice and Death, which is the first scenario, as I said, could be 1 to 3 parts, and it really actually rewards exploring the map and trying to find little things and do little side quests. So like if you are playing this in your blind campaign, keep your eyes open for little side quests that might pop up, because you can get some really cool potential rewards, which you have to then also work for in the future to get. It's a really cool mechanic that I'm excited for you to see. In one of my personal favorite scenarios in Edge of the Earth, you get the payoff to all this kind of like exploration. But what's really good is it like the reward is very fun, and it's one of the reasons that I routinely see online of people saying what they like about Edge of the Earth, because you can build around these cool cards on repeat playthroughs, but on your blind play you basically just get a lot of really cool fun toys to play with if you are going to do this exploration. Additionally as well, this is especially true in the first scenario, where the more time you're able to find like the perfect place, you'll get rewarded for it, which I think is just like a really cool aspect about Edge of the Earth. I think Edge of the Earth is a pretty cool blind play, especially in the first few scenarios. I think there's like they're really nice for that. So explore, enjoy, and have fun. Our final tip is evading and high agility are often rewarded in this campaign. It makes sense. This campaign is kind of like Forgotten Age, where it's based around an expedition, right? So you're facing the harsh winter elements, and you have to survive those elements. So because of that, like Forgotten Age, it's going to use your agility or your foot, your physicality in order to provide stress points for your characters. However, also it's one of those things where what better way to combat, to show the idea of like dealing with snow, trudging through snow with me as a Canadian, I know it sucks, is using your agility, your foot score to actually be able to make things pop off there. This carries throughout the entire campaign. One, for the reason that spoiler-free as possible, that I mentioned earlier with the Guardians being punished, or like the fighter being punished by certain enemies. I think the same is true, that your agility is going to be able to deal with it. So like if you evade the enemy or lock down that enemy in a variety of different ways, you could potentially take advantage of it. It's not like, this isn't like I think it's less impactful than Forgotten Age, but I do think it is still an impactful thing. Maybe in like 2 or 3 years, when I play Edge of the Earth a few more times, I can revisit this list. But I do think that these are 5 solid tips to give you a good foundation for when it comes to playing Edge of the Earth and like getting ahead of Edge of the Earth. So I hope that helped. I always like doing these little videos. We're going to do Scarlet Keys. I have to really crunch myself and figure out that one. Maybe I'll do a replay of it before I do that video. So it'll be out on the channel in the near future. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any tips, please let me know down in the comments. As I said, I've only played this campaign like 10 times at the most. So like more context and more tips would be great if you have them. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.